today to come chat with all of us. I think this will be a lot of fun. You're more than welcome to have an adult beverage. It is happy hour. However, you don't have to drink if you don't want to. I'm not going to make anybody drink. So I'll do my quick intro. We did that last time. I know Peter and Samuel, we kind of heard your spiel. So we'll the three of us will do kind of a quicker one this time, and then we'll hand it off over to Rachel and Andy. So myself, I'm Jacob. I've been doing IT stuff, for 25 years probably. Only about 10 of those in security. The last 10 years in security. Everything from RF to IP data, a lot of R&D stuff. So got to really experience moving information and securing it over a lot of different mediums. So I'll hand it over to Samuel.
Hey, good evening, folks. Thanks for coming back for another lap around the track where we get a chance to kind of, share, pick brains, compare notes. I have recently retired after 28 years service with the FBI as a computer scientist, basically chasing hackers and spies or defending against hackers and spies. Currently running my own cyber security advisory consultancy. Just recently picked up another nice project helping a defense industry contractor begin to work through the process of establishing a risk management framework. So that's what I'm up to these days.
I think it's Peter's turn, huh?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Peter Gregory, 20 plus years in infosec, just changed jobs. I just stepped out of consulting back into real work as a senior director of GRC at GCI Communications in Anchorage. This is my fourth week, just getting to know my team and what the company is up to, and just getting used to the challenges of playing the long game instead of the short game.
Very awesome. Well, it's nice to meet you all. I'm Rachel Arnold. I'm a client relationship specialist at Secure Nation, which is a very small value-added reseller, SAN services, completely vendor agnostic, yada, 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 ... right? Like all these things out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, because that's just how we like to do things. Been in the industry for quite a while, off on the sidelines, jumped into more of a serious capacity type position about 2 years ago. So here I am, deep end, sink or swim, right?
That make it my turn?
I think
Yes,
so.
Sir.
Fantastic. Hi, I'm Andy Bennett. 11 days ago, I was a faithful public servant who spent 14 years doing various roles, securing various things. I was the deputy CISO for the state of Texas in my final role in government, and it was a lot of fun. You guys may have remembered something in the news last August about some sort of ransomware, something in Texas. That was me and my team, and we managed to clean that up in 8 days flat. So 23 cities up, 23 cities down, good to go. Oh. An ounce of preparation is worth 10 pounds of cure, let me tell you. So I've been in IT since 1996. I did my first security thing in 2003, and you try to get out and they keep pulling you back. So here we are.
You can never leave. That's just
well, you could never leave. And I guess I should say I left government to go to the dark side, as we in government always called it. I am now also on the private sector side. I took a role as the vice president of technology for Apollo Information Systems out of Silicon Valley. So great to be here with you guys.
Awesome. Very cool. I actually talked to Rich Owen a couple of weeks ago, and he did quite a few things for the Attorney General of Texas in the more like 90s kind of time frame. So he set up a lot of those security programs within the state of Texas. So
awesome.
It's very cool. I got a weird like Kevin Bacon level connection to what you just out of.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. He's probably the missing link in our connection.
Yeah, it's like 6 degrees of Texas. Like everyone's connected somehow back to
You
Texas.
can know everyone in Texas, right?
Uh-huh.
We'd meet
In
up
6
once a week for a campfire. What are you talking about?
And Rachel, I think this would be, before we forget, if we could do a quick plug on the coffee table talk.
Oh yeah, sure. You
Tell
guys
us about
can have
that.
coffee. So we're not doing this week, and we didn't do last week. Little personal information about Rachel. I suffer severely from anemia. I have to go get infusions regularly, like once a month. I go to like an infusion center and sit down, and they plug me up and pump me up. Like that's the level of anemia. So I'm like a quart low right now. So it makes me very susceptible to infections and kids going back to school, right? So my 5-year-old came home with like just a regular head cold, right? Nobody be freaked out. It wasn't COVID. Just a regular head cold. I got it. And then within 3 days, I thought I was getting better. Just kidding. Migrated to the rear of my sinus cavity. And then I had a double ear infection for like, so life was pretty sad. We're gearing up to do the next round after this week, which it's just very much so like this, right? It's
Well, with coffee instead of booze.
Yeah, with coffee instead of booze, basically.
Well, I'm only 3 pots in for the day. I'm a coffeeholic, so I've now switched to the Scotch. So I might join you then too. Who knows?
Yes, I have a serious coffee addiction, and actually, it's really funny. I kind of have a small. I'm not sure if Chris Roberts is aware of it, but I kind of hate that he doesn't drink coffee. Somebody should tell him.
But you realize he doesn't need to drink coffee.
He probably hates that I don't drink tea. So it's okay, right? I can appreciate a good Tigger mug, and I leave him alone for the most part.
And for Andy, I do have a question. Is there a proper ratio of number of pots to ramp up the day compared to the number of scotches to bring down the day on the other end there, Andy?
No, I'm one of those lucky or unlucky, I don't know, people who caffeine doesn't really affect me. I have no trouble sleeping at night, so I can drink a gallon of coffee and a couple Red Bulls, or I'm a Monster drinker, not a Red Bull drinker.
That is just so wrong.
Rachel did.
That is so wrong.
That'll change.
Well, it might change at some point, right? My dad keeps telling me that after 45, everything's going to go. So I'm like, well, okay, we'll see. I keep telling him that medical science is way past where it was when he was my age. So we'll see.
Nice one.
So Andy, I don't know how much you could elaborate on that 8 days that you had to resolve that incident, but would you be able to discuss maybe some key takeaways that you think made it very successful?
That made it very successful? Absolutely. The key takeaway is that practice. Make sure you have a plan. And I will also say that, and I'm not the one who said this, I just can't remember which general did, that the plan is useless. I don't care what you planned for. The plan is useless. It's the planning that matters. Because if you've taken the time to plan, you've taken the time to identify stakeholders, you've taken the time to form relationships in advance, you're not wasting time during a response meeting new friends, right? Because the worst possible time to make new acquaintances is in an emergency. And while we didn't know everybody at the affected places, we did know in advance all of the responders, and we had good trusted relationships to bring in augmentations to our forces. But in my previous capacity, I also had, with the governor's assent, because nobody calls out the guard without the governor's assent, but with the governor's assent, I had the ability to borrow General Norris's troops and augment my forces on the ground. And so I got to play general for a couple days, and with the combination of state, private sector, and actual state guard forces, National Guard forces, and a joint force of Army and Air, we were able to go and get on site everywhere. And that's not to say that they were 100% restored at the end of 8 days, but the bad guys were evicted and everybody was on a pat. Everybody was back up and functional at a core business level. Were they up to full capacity? Probably not. Not in all cases. In some cases, yes, because a couple of them were so small that any functionality was full functionality. And in other cases, in the larger places that got hit, we'd get them up to 25% and have a roadmap to get to 100. But the core thing is make sure the bad guys were out. We described ourselves as firefighters, where we will come, we will put out the fire, we will make sure there is no trace of fire left in your building. We will help you board up the windows and the doors and all that stuff to make sure the structure is safe and unlikely to cause additional harm. And then we will give you everything you need to give to your contractor to help get all the way back up. But you'll still be able to use your yard. You'll still be able to take meetings in your foyer that wasn't burned out, unlike the rest of the house and stuff like that. So that's how we described our approach.
So
Yeah.
how many locations is that?
I think some of us coming from a military background know, the train how you fight.
Yeah.
So it's painful when you're only training, but then when it happens, when you're in the fight, that preparation pays off, like you said.
Yeah, there's no substitution.
Let me tack on something here that Andy just threw out there towards the front end of what he was saying. I used to go out and do presentations on behalf of the FBI, my former employer, and I think Andy may have heard me say this a time or two as he was in the audience, but one of the things I would say is, I never got the phone call that said, "Hey, Mr. Sutton, everything's fine, just thought you should know, 90 days, no incident. Just thought I'd fill you in." Never got that phone call. Would always get the phone call when their network was on fire. And so one of the things I used to do in the presentations was I strongly encouraged folks in the audience, hey, if you have not done it yet, reach out and talk to somebody on one of the cyber squads in your local FBI office. I dare you to take them for a cup of coffee or a sandwich at lunch or meet them after work. Just do something before you need to do something or wished you had done something, because they're only scary on the outside.
Exactly.
They're very approachable. They'll be happy to talk with you about hypotheticals or possibilities and exchange contact information to set up for the time if and when Andy had a scenario, you needed to reach out, you needed to make connections. That's already established. Just like Andy said, that just makes that whole process go so much smoother.
Mm-hmm. And without it, go ahead.
Last thing you want to do is be talking to someone at the FBI office and tell them what happened, and then the first thing they say is, "Who is this again?"
Yeah.
You that is a good relationship to have.
Yep.
Because then, if they can help you, they can help you, or they may know someone who can.
And like Samuel said, they're a lot more open than people give them credit for. They love to be involved in the community. They also want you to be involved in Infragard. Now I'm going to plug Infragard, even though I myself haven't been in quite a while because I've been too busy. It's one of the things I'm looking forward to doing now that I'm in the private sector, because now that's outreach, right? And I don't have a need or ability to go as directly to my federal partners as I used to. So that's my conduit, and I'm going to use it. But I already know the value of it. So anybody who might be listening, and to you guys who might not be doing it, I agree completely. Give them a call. You'll be surprised. And don't neglect your other federal partners. You got Homeland Security in the mix there. Call your state liaison. Every single region has a state liaison, and in some cases more than one, that can come and give presentations to your local high school. They can give presentations to your county. They can talk to your professional organization. Their stated mission and drive and reason for being and employment is to help get the word out. So talk to your DHS CISA liaisons, and don't neglect the Secret Service too, because there's a lot of mission overlap between the FBI and the Secret Service. And one of them may be able to get to you a lot faster than the other, depending on your region, location, use case, etc. So don't stop your networking. Just like your professional network needs to reach as far as it can, so that you have the reach you need, and they have, and they can use you as a tool. The same exact thing goes with your federal partners. Get to know them, make yourself available. They will make themselves available. Just don't spout crackpot theories to them, because nothing gets rid of a Fed partner faster, right?
Okay, so he mentioned DHS, he mentioned Secret Service. Then on the non-government side, he mentioned Infragard. I'd also like to throw out on the non-government side, ISSA, if you're all familiar with them, and also ISACA, if you have any connections with folks there. Two other additional groups, very well connected into the cybersecurity community and almost anywhere you might live, similar to what Infragard also provides. So yeah, get out there, get to some meetings. They sometimes even throw events where you can, pick up a few free CEUs now and then throughout the year. So that never hurts.
Yeah.
That's about all the swag you can get today is CEUs, right? Since nothing's done in person.
Yeah, we actually did an event recently with Infragard, Secure Nation and Infragard. We did one last month. We were aiming just to locally state kind of awareness, and it ended up we had people from the Infragard in Hawaii that attended. I was like, where did you guys come from? I mean, if they let me in, okay, you're getting in. Just go, unless you're one of those dubious characters, but they'll let you in. It's all right. Yeah, definitely.
Look at this beard. They let me in.
Hey, I have a tinfoil hat. I just don't wear it in public.
I can vouch for that.
Oh man, I have seen Chris Roberts in a tinfoil hat that was bigger than his dog.
I believe that.
And then
Nice.
Ryan on the same episode of the Security Shit Show had they all did it. I was like, what are you guys doing? They're gonna tune in Tokyo or something. It was super duper bad, but I think Chris actually took one of those cheese head hats and covered the whole thing in aluminum foil. They wore them until they were sweating so bad they kind of looked like they were gonna pass out, but it was fun. No, don't hide your tinfoil hat. Put it on. Be loud and proud.
Wear it proudly, right?
Right.
Chris was in our last session, but he left his tinfoil hat at home. But he brought his dogs, and they are huge.
Yeah. They're big, big babies.
More like small horses.
Yeah, maybe.
Hey, so let me ask you guys a question. I don't know how well you guys might follow this stuff, but you might guess where I used to work. I pay a lot of attention to this. The whole thing about TikTok and it's being sold, it's not being sold, right? I just wanted to pointedly bring up the fact that the news isn't about TikTok being sold or assimilated by somebody else. The news is the fact that TikTok is one of many examples of apps by, I'll just say, a foreign hostile country that's across the Pacific somewhere.
CCP? Who said that?
Yeah, and or maybe their military and or, other folks who are obligated by their political system to assist that political system, putting apps out there that are being brought onto people's phones, which are now being walked around the corporate security edge and right into the conference room and right into the land of QB, where all the real work is going on. So it's a method to totally bypass any of the stuff around the edge perimeter providing security. That's the real news behind that story, which, in my opinion, was kind of getting lost.
Yeah.
Well, of course it's going to get lost. The media isn't about the truth. I mean, I didn't expect this discussion to go here. The media is about getting people's eyes to watch it. And the more engaging story is the conflict of sold or not sold and whether or not people can still post their videos, right? The rest of us who think about other concerns, and I will say you need to add one word, and I'm going to add it for you, potentially walk around, right? Because not in every single case is it, but is it potential? Yes. And if we're going to talk in terms of risk and threat, right, the potential is there.
Yes.
And it is. I mean, people bring their cell phone into a skiff, and that's supposed to be the top of the line physical security. So,
right.
Yeah, let's be honest.
The facility can be amazing, but if your processes aren't followed, nothing matters. And that is a theme that goes across all of security. That's something that anybody who's been doing this for more than 30 days has seen something of if you got out of training.
Yep, we've all seen the 500-page policy, but then we watch, their process, and it's trash.
Yeah. In fact, I just had a marketing idea. I'm going to start having toilet paper rolls printed with policies.
Yeah.
Bidet since is that not what we're doing now? We're not doing the bidet anymore. We're just that's how we combated it. All the toilet paper shortage and everything else. I think it's a great idea though. Go for it.
You got a laptop stickers on the bidet lid, right?
There's no change. They're already doing it. I mean, it's just a regular day, regular Tuesday. 100%. You guys have this perspective that I can't relate to, but I can relate to something very real around a lot of these apps. I have a friend who she's not even recently divorced anymore. It's been like a year and a half. And she has some severe emotional damage from it. And one of the things that I've told her is to put your phone down 100% of the time, because the algorithms in the dating apps that she's now subscribed to LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, to Instagram, Facebook, all these things. I was like, put your phone down. And whenever you notice that the notifications are getting way more baity, right? Like they're going to show her that her ex-husband is now in a relationship, ding, ding, right? Or anything around that. Your apps are talking about you behind your back, okay? And they're collecting data on you that to you, you're like, what does that mean? I don't understand what that means. It means that Tinder knows what time of day you're the loneliness, like that you're the most alone. It knows that. And it knows how to advertise and market to you because of it. It feeds on your vulnerabilities as a human being instead of the vulnerabilities that we can combat as security professionals, right? And it takes a lot of awareness to understand once you use these apps that that's what's happening to you. If you're not convinced that that's what's happening to you, put your phone down for 10 minutes and do nothing.
Give it a day. It gets real crazy then.
It's a drug. It's dopamine, 100%.
Yep.
Like it's
Okay, that is for sure. It's the dopamine effect. I saw a video a year or two ago. One of Facebook's founders who left the business. You probably have seen that. I see you're nodding.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Andy, and the guy who wouldn't let his kids use mobile devices, or Facebook especially, because people who want to get liked, it's like a dopamine shot, and it literally is conditioning people. It's an addiction, like caffeine or alcohol, right? The gas pedal, the brake pedal, and the dopamine, the feel-good pedal.
The apps are free. What do you know that it's free?
Yeah,
no.
That's the thing, right?
Nothing
When
is
You are the commodity.
Yeah.
We are, when it's free, we are the product being sold.
Oh yeah, 100%. You're being farmed, guys. Do you not like?
Okay, so
farmed.
I don't know if this is an age difference or this is I've been doing it
exposure to
a
a tinfoil hat.
long time. Nice. But I pointedly look for areas in this country where there are no bars, and I drive my RV there for a week or 10 days at a time, a couple of 3 times a year, just so I can honestly say, I'm sorry, I'm out of range.
Yeah.
No bars. Sorry.
Yeah. Who signs up for cruises for the same reason?
Well, yeah, but now I have internet on the hideously expensive, but they got it.
Yeah, I'm not paying for it.
No, the booze is less expensive, and that's saying something.
Yeah, exactly. So I absolutely have signed up for a cruise. And I was signed up for a cruise to go on March 26th of this year, and it didn't happen for obvious reasons. I was so looking forward to a week of disconnected Mai Tais.
Yeah.
Okay, I got that one beat. Sadly, I must add,
Yeah.
30-year wedding anniversary trip, all paid by points saved for years off the credit card,
Oh no.
canceled and pushed back on the calendar for a whole year. Yeah, it's like whimper at my house, let me tell you.
Who says you can't be 30 twice, Samuel?
Well, I trim it closer and cut it off and paste it up here. I don't know.
Rachel, I think you highlighted something else that I hear a lot that's us in security we often don't actually talk about. We talk about the potential risks of the exfil and how that can be used against us and stuff like that. But you scraped on an issue too of the intersection between security and privacy, and how so many people confuse privacy for security, and they are so not the same thing. And people who work in a HIPAA regulated environment or some sort of medically regulated field, they're the only ones who have a everyday understanding of that distinction between security and privacy. Sometimes they don't understand security at all, but they get the privacy. And I think that that's something that as we move from information just being posted and consumed on our schedule and we have an ad on the page to the model you described of the dopamine based app, right, where we're fueled by our information and we get a thrill because of the alert, and that alert is just the same news story that we had, or is us getting told that our ex-spouse is now in a relationship, whatever the algorithm has decided floats your boat to get you to click the thing, right? It's not well understood by the community at large, and I say community, I mean security community, our community, and I think you touched on that very, very adeptly, and so I'm just going to go ahead and hit it with a hammer. What do you guys think about the relationship between security and privacy? And I hear about people who say they're diverging more than ever before. And I also hear
okay, so something
very
similar.
the same person.
So they're in a dance, right? Like the more you get of one, the less you get of the other. Like, it's a
Can be.
Maybe not, but another one that is right next to it is the fact that I still run into people in conversations and presentations where they do not understand the difference between being compliant versus being secure. And they frequently will assume they are secure because they passed their last compliance audit.
Right. Yeah. Well, and understanding the difference between the security program and the baseline, and what a baseline means, and that compliance is usually a baseline and not meeting the actual needs of the organization. Very few organizations that have a regulatory requirement to be compliant can actually meet their security needs by being compliant, because the very fact that you have regulations that apply to you, generally, with the possible exception of CCPA, means you have more to guard, because you're doing business that is regulated. So there's a reason you're regulated.
Yep. I'll take a different tack on privacy, and the way that I like to think about it is that privacy has two halves. One half is just data security, protecting the data from unauthorized users, protecting it from exfiltration, etc., right? But the other part is the proper handling of that data, handling it transparently, disclosing through privacy policy how you are going to use that data, as well as providing means for users to have their data corrected and removed and so on. So using that, you can't have privacy without security. And similarly, you can't have very good security without good IT service management. So, it's layers of business integrity.
You just built a chain.
Yeah, it's layers of business integrity and intentionality that are needed to do privacy successfully. If you're not doing security very well, you're going to fail at privacy because of the failure of the protection part of it.
Absolutely. And if you're not doing IT very well, you're going to have a hard time doing security well. I'm just going to go to the beginning of your chain.
Yep. All true.
Yep, absolutely. And you notice when I introduced myself, I said I've been in IT since 1996, and I didn't separate my security career from IT. I hear a lot of people who refer to the IT operations folks as their IT and we're security. I've got news for everybody who works in cybersecurity and information security, regardless of which word you like to use to describe yourself in our profession, and regardless of whether or not you were in the same organization under the CIO or whether you answer to the chief risk officer, you are still in the business of IT. We are still in the business of IT. We don't just suddenly stand alone.
Yeah.
You know, I actually was talking to a network admin today that said, I've been trying to break into security and I'm new at this. I was like, what? No, you're not. Did you not know?
And you should have been doing it all along.
Right. No, he was though. He was.
Right. They just don't recognize that.
Nobody labeled it that. They weren't like, good job. Today you did this many tasks that were security related and this many, because there is, you know, a lot of things are, it's you know, multi-level descripted, like the same thing that you do just in regular network admin world is also a security step, right? Like it's okay. They not always understand that the things that they're doing are just innately also securing them at the same time. But I know what you're talking about though too, whenever it's, you know, this is a separation of duties, and you're right, it shouldn't be a separation of duties, right? InfoSec is not an island, guys. Get off it. Like go talk and mingle and mix with your neighbors.
Okay, except there one key difference between those that are just in IT versus those who are just in InfoSec is this. The folks in IT are all about getting people on, connected, put the fires out.
Availability.
Compared to the folks in InfoSec are usually thinking about measures and controls to make sure that it's only the people they care about getting on or getting connected. So you're right that tools are similar, approaches are similar, but how they get applied or layered in will be a little different, because I have worked both sides of that fence. And then I've sometimes played adversary, and I've sometimes played protector, and even then in that arena, it's same set of tools, just applied differently to attempt to reach different goals.
There is a somewhat different.
I think as an industry, though, we're definitely getting better. We're going in the right direction. I mean, and I think some of it came from the software side a lot too. Now, you used to have software had no security in it at all until like the very last day. And now look, you got DevSecOps where literally the first thing they're thinking about is security. And so I think as an industry as a whole, we're moving in the right direction. But you know, Andy pointed out a good topic though. I mean, I even consider myself, you know, having been a part of both worlds, and I kind of, you know, don't really look at them back then as being together, but they really were the whole time. They honest to God were. Even though if I was just in a router config, making some changes here and there on the IT side, every single thing I did inside that configuration had a huge security impact. But you don't think of it back then because you're just like, I'm just configuring the router. All these cyber nerds are doing cool stuff. Why am I not doing cool stuff?
So I'm married to an analyst. I'm just going to tell you, it's cool. You're not missing a whole lot. All right. It's a lot.
I learned that. Once I got into it. This isn't as cool as I thought.
Yeah.
Now, I've had the veneer pulled back so many times. Go ahead, Rachel. Keep going. I just needed to say that. The veneer, it's gone. None of us are special. We have just done some things because we were in a place at the time.
Basically. Again, you know, referring back to my friend Rich Owen that I got to talk to, like one of the first conversations that he and I had, he was like, I was like, so how'd you get started? Right? Like, that's an easy question. Should be. How did you get started? What was your first role? He was like, well, in Vietnam. I was like, well, okay.
Can you start later than that? Yeah.
Hold on just a hot damn minute. what did that look like? He was like, well, they called us radio research. I was like, oh, like it instantly, my brain got blown away and expanded. And the Google tabs that I opened during that conversation, you guys, I'm surprised that my
Signals core and various other things. Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. And come to find out that basically they were capturing enemy radio signals, decrypting it, and also ensured that their own radio signals were encrypted.
Yes, and hopefully not being decrypted in the same way.
Right. And I was like, cool. So how did you get that position, Rich? He said the guy before me was one of the first ones to die in Vietnam. Okay.
Not the way we want to get it done.
Oh, that's cool. Like it was eye-opening, right? And then he jumped from there to NASA, and then NASA to what was it? He was doing for the Texas Attorney General. And somebody in the audience asked him, did you understand what you were building while you were doing it? And he said, no, I was just a regular guy. I knew what to do, and I just did it. I just did it, right? Like he was building security protocols that the rest of us base our lives on, like basically. And and he's not the only one, right? Like there's a handful of these guys that are just, they didn't even realize that that's what they were doing. They were just everyday average Joes, like Rich just wanted to pursue a technical type career and knew that he could go to the Air Force. He didn't like the way that the Air Force was going to vet him out as what kind of placement, the exam or whatever assessment there was going to be, because he had to sign up first and then get assessed. He was like, no, that sounds like a no, not doing that.
Which, right? Yeah.
And then he went to the Army instead. And that's, I mean, you don't know. It's one day at a time. I have people all the time that ask me, how do you break into cybersecurity, right? Like the network admin. I'm like, dude, you're there. Like, you've been here the whole time.
In fact, you're in the best position.
Yeah. Like have some confidence in your abilities and what it is that you're doing anyway, because nobody understands you. I'm just going to let you know. Nobody but other network admins get what you just said, like, period. It's just,
with the skills shortage today, it seems like infosec would be the easiest profession in the world to break into. I mean, if you're competent in IT, in any specialty in IT, all you have to do is raise your hand and say, I'd like to get into
I volunteer tribute, right? Like that's
volunteer tribute. But I will say there's a whole lot of folks in leadership, our peers, we have work to do with our peers, because a whole lot of them, they talk about the skills gap, they talk about the labor shortage and bemoan how hard it is to find people and all that stuff, right? And we could have that discussion ad nauseum, but it's all just talk if they're not willing to take a chance on a new guy or gal.
That's right.
It's all just talk. And until you start hiring for portable skills and taking that chance and bringing somebody in, and it takes work. It takes work to bring those people in, because yes, our network security guy has been doing security, but he does not speak the language of security, because even though we're talking about the same stuff he was doing, we use different words. And it takes time and mentorship and leadership to bring those people in. And just so many people, I mean, just like anything in life, so many people are willing to complain about it, but not willing to contribute to the solution. And I probably just pissed off half the audience, and I'm sorry.
Well, no. They can move one of their current people over to begin to raise up, because this person that they currently have already knows their systems, already understands their business, is familiar with their team. So just move somebody over and begin to bring them up. That's a shorter training path. And then what you do is you backfill or lift up somebody else who's been there to what you just vacated, and then you backfill down lower, however far down you need to reach. And so you just sort of build this conveyor belt or pipeline inside of your own enterprise, where when you need somebody, you ask for a volunteer, or you check their resumes and say, hey, Mike, I noticed you picked up a class on this or that, and we're needing somebody over here on this little project. Are you game? Are you interested? Mike's probably going to jump on it.
Two
And
things.
then so Mike gets over there, and you move somebody else up where Mike left.
Two things. Number one, a lot of organizations don't know how to make a security professional. They want someone who comes in and knows what to do instinctively.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying that this is a good or bad. They just don't know how to make one. And that's, I think, part of the problem. I mean, so companies need to learn how to make infosec professionals. The other is that IT doesn't like people getting poached. But you're right. It's the best pool because they already know the technology and they know the business. They know your business.
Yeah.
And
is why somebody that's prepackaged, ready to go, isn't really ready to go, right?
yeah, I mean, all you add is, 7 secret herbs and spices, and now they're a security professional, right? Or they get 11 herbs and spices.
Can I ask, what is the deal with so Josh, husband, right, in IT, recently got a couple weeks ago was laid off due to COVID, right? He's not alone. There's a bunch of other people. It's okay. He's already got a contract and somebody else is offering him a bunch of, here's a Disneyland trip for whatever when it reopens. So it's fine. But while we were doing, because we're a team. So while he was going through the job hunt and I was kind of, looking through some listings as well, what is with, we want 7 years of McAfee? What is that? What is that? Or
my favorite thing is we want 20 years of cloud containerisms. And I said that on purpose. I said that on purpose because I literally, on my LinkedIn feed, I saw somebody posting, this is what I hate. And it highlighted a technology that has only existed for 3 years and they were asking for 10 years of experience. Yeah. It's ridiculous. And that's actually exactly the point I was making, where people aren't willing, they want to complain about it. But then when they write the job descriptions, they directly exclude the proper pool. And the only people you will get when you post something like that is somebody willing to lie about their application.
100%. Exactly. Is somebody willing to wolf, sheep's clothing, all that, everything, all of it, right? And then the other thing that irks the hell out of me is analyst level, tier one analyst must have cert.
Right.
Wrong.
I'm
like, wrong. And
that's level 1, but you must have level 5 experience.
Right. That one irritates me. Or I have come across so I keep some of the people that I talk to on a regular basis that are in the industry as CISOs, IT directors, CIOs, this kind of stuff. This is a give and take relationship between the two of us, right? Like I ask questions, they ask me questions, right? Like it goes back and forth a whole lot. Yeah. There are some that through that conversation, I'm not saying all, that even, hi, I got here yesterday. Once I talked to them for just a few minutes, I realized that they probably got their job based on the ability to talk themselves into anything. Right? Like they have no clue at all what's going on. I came across somebody that I had to share just some basic NIST frameworks with because they had no idea. I was like, cool. I'll be over here. Right? Like, don't call me, we'll call you. I was like, you need a whole person. Like, you don't need just somebody holding your hand and guiding you through some things and keeping your calendar organized. You need like a whole different, no, that one's rough for me too. That one tells me that at some point there was a job posting that wasn't heavy enough, right?
And it's also, I'll tell you what, senior leadership roles, the hiring for senior leadership roles is even worse than the hiring for entry-level analysts. Mm-hmm. Like, it is so relationship driven, not qualification driven.
Right.
I get it, right? You want to hire somebody you know, but it's amazing to me how often you apply for a job, and I apply for jobs all the time. I won't be for a while because I just switched jobs, but I apply for jobs all the time just to see what's out there. Everybody should. And your career counselor in college told you to apply for jobs just for the interview practice. That's real. But there are so many times where I know I have been overly qualified for the position and been dismissed in 30 minutes flat, had my rejection letter, right? And only to find out that somebody who I know from personal experience is a straight up charlatan is now in that role 30 days later. And it's because the hiring practices across from the bottom to the top, they're broken. And people are more concerned with putting people they know than people they can validate. There's no validation. And we expect the world from our entry-level people, and we let our leadership go without accountability. And now I'm really pissing people in the audience off. Because frankly, if you think I'm talking about you, I probably am. And if you're like, man, that sucks, I'm probably not talking about you.
But it's not all of them, right? And it's not everybody.
No.
And some of the people that find themselves in certain roles just because of connections that they may have are way qualified, right? Like it's not. Yeah. You're talking about a very niche, community.
I am.
That we come across.
I am. But they're so loud.
They are.
They're so loud because I think they're so loud because they're scared that if they're not, somebody will have a minute to ask them a question.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is still a gap with the good leadership, though, and HR, because there's still a lot of good leadership, and they're not talking to HR. So what does HR know? They know, oh, this is maybe a senior analyst spot. So we need a mandatory masters and cert XYZ, like you mentioned, Rachel. And I have a ton of certs. I have a master's in cybersecurity, but you should not have to have any of those for any of the jobs we do. And so it pains me when I see some of these, but it's not HR's fault because that's all they know. So nobody's holding their hand saying, hey, we don't necessarily need, XYZ cert because, let's be honest, they're trash.
So Jacob, are you suggesting that maybe the InfoSec professionals in their field go and make friends with the HR people? Is that what you're suggesting?
It's a wild idea. I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Where's the security people at the HR conference?
Fair enough.
Let's do this exact panel and discussion at an HR conference.
Exactly. We should.
Right.
I think they can party just as hard as we can. I'm just saying.
I tell you what part of the best is librarians. If you get a chance to go to a librarian event or an archivist event, because that's the professional word for librarian.
Is it?
Do it.
I learned something today.
All right. So if we're gonna take this to an HR conference event, then this is one that has been a personal grievance of mine. And Andy happens to know how I went through this back late last year, early this year, as I was in the process of trying to transition out. And I'm more than qualified to do lots of different types of things. And so I was applying for things that I was obviously qualified for. So the problem I consistently ran into was not getting selected. I would always make it into the final group of 3 or 5 before they selected, and consistently being left behind, the proverbial bridesmaid, never the bride. Right. So I decided, all right, there's something I got to catch or fix, right? So I started calling back into those companies, my connections in there, saying, hey, buddy, what happened? And the answer was always a variation of the same theme. Oh, yeah, they filled the position with some guy 30 years younger so they could pay him $30K less. And I'm going, I can't fix that. And after I'd be mad the first couple times I heard that, I suddenly realized, wait a minute, I don't want to be the choke goat. Right. And since I can't fix that, I'm glad I heard about that from the outside looking in, rather than having landed there to learn one day, wait a minute, tag, I'm it. I'm the choke goat. And these people, they really don't want an experienced, well-versed cybersecurity person. They just want a method to check the box. Exactly, Rachel. They just want somebody so they can check the box. And I'm
well,
going,
there's a difference between an organization. Yeah, there's a difference between an organization who's trying to hire a chief information security officer or a chief information scapegoat officer?
Yes. Acronym's the same.
It is. Yeah,
I cannot
it's
take
no
credit for
different
that.
on the
I'll let you
business
know.
card.
I think that was on purpose.
Was that Peter?
That's
It's the same. Yeah, the same acronym looks the same on the business card.
It does. And you get the title, you get the resume, and you also get the 18-month countdown. Just know it when you start and start putting those applications in at your 1 year.
So what do you do? What do you do in
Done.
this situation, Andy? What do you do when you as a incoming CISO transitioning into an organization find out, right? You figure it out. You figured it out too late, right? It's whenever you first start trying to, I don't know, do some kind of asset managing, or you're like, let's start scheduling our vulnerability scans. That would sound like a good idea. Maybe we should do that. And you get either crickets or we don't do it that way. We've never done it that way. We're not going to do it that way. Good job. Go back to your office. You know,
Right.
pat on the head. Here's your sippy cup and your cookie. Go back to bed, child. Right? Like, stay asleep in there and don't bother us. Here's a tablet. Like,
I will say I have two different but related answers.
Okay.
So the first one is, a lot of times we in security forget something that's very critical. And that is that we are not in the business of security, right? We're in the security community, but we're in the business of whatever business we work for is. And so if you work for a dog food company, you are in the dog food business, and I don't care what your role is. When I worked at a bank, I was a banker. I never touched money, except when I had to go service an ATM because its modem broke, right? And all I did was hand that money to the security guard so I could work on some stuff, right?
Yeah.
So we too often forget that we are not in the business of security. We are part of the security community, and we have some job duties, but we are in the business of our employer. And if our employer determines that in their risk appetite, their risk portfolio, and their willingness to accept an overly abundant amount of residual risk, we are obligated to accept that in that role. Now, we're not obligated to stay, and we can start shopping that day. But we need to remember that. Now, if you do find that out and you realize that you are hobbled, the risk appetite of the organization is sky high, and you are a scapegoat officer, you need to start covering your ass, first of all, which means don't forget to email, say, hey, thanks for that meeting. Here's my takeaways, and don't be snarky about it either.
right.
Make sure your takeaways are, we've presented the risk. We've determined that the organization is comfortable with this level of risk. These are the possible outcomes if the harms come to pass because of this risk. State the business impact, get your butt covered. When a lawsuit happens afterwards, you might get subpoenaed by the other side because you documented it, right? But cover yourself. After that, remember that you work for the business and you keep highlighting things. Also, don't ever let a tragedy go to waste. If you have a minor incident, highlight it. Use that to show why your first stab at getting things done was important. Too often, people let minor incidents that could have been major go to waste. Don't do that. And then last but not least, if it's really not a fit, start shopping before you get kicked out. It's that simple.
Exactly.
That full 18-month timeline reminds me of the joke with the 3 envelopes. You probably
Yes.
all what?
This is the perfect case for that.
Prepare 3 envelopes. Yeah. Yep.
And one thing we learned in the news recently is if something does go down, just own it. Don't try to hide it, because it's not going to end well.
Yep.
It's definitely.
Well, honesty is always the best policy, and it's amazing. Why do we keep forgetting that?
Yeah, but I like how you mentioned though that we definitely do work for the business. We need to always have the business process in mind and not constantly just be straight security, because that's where we become the enemy. That's when we're constantly blocking the business. And what is the business there for to begin with? They have a process or a service or product that makes money. That's why they're there. And if we're constantly being a roadblock, I mean, that's some of the times when we get the bad rap and we're always, the enemy.
Right.
We don't secure the business as they deliver. If we're successful, we support the business to securely deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's our job as security leaders to help business owners and leaders make informed risk decisions.
Yep.
It's their business. It's their decisions. Now, sometimes we're not going to agree with them, but it's their company. Now, if they consistently countermand our recommendations, then yeah, it's time to prepare 3 envelopes because, you know, the clock is ticking at that point.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. And I
Yeah,
think
where the art comes in is getting them to accept the implications of their decisions. That's the art.
There's the other one, right? How do you come off as not an asshole whenever you're like, told you so, like.
Yeah, you have to take that out of your vocabulary.
Yeah, don't be that guy. Like, just be the one that's like, I'm so sorry.
I don't know if
Now you
anybody
see why we need this new project.
So luckily, our whole team has been researching all of this stuff I was telling you about, and we are so ready to go. We got it. We got the perfect one.
If you say "told you so," I mean, you'll be fired before you draw your next.
Yeah, 100%. The first one that's like, so remember these other 16 emails that I sent you? Don't do that. Don't be that guy. You know, be the friend, right? You want to be their friend to begin with, because I mean, if you're in a business, it should concern you whether or not that business is doing well. That's how you get your paycheck. You should be concerned about that, right? You shouldn't be concerned about being right. You should be concerned about being a team player. Okay, teamwork, guys.
Simple rules for life. Don't be an asshole. I like it.
I mean, it's rule number 1. Like, and someday I actually pass out trophies for the least asshole person that I've talked to. I'm like, congratulations, you win. You're the nicest person today. I love it.
If the way you think is that you want to make sure you're always right, then infosec is not a good profession.
No, it's not, because 1, you're not always right. Right? There's always somebody out is going to outrun you or outthink you or go around you or something. It doesn't matter.
Well, even if you were right yesterday, a new technology is going to change how the business runs tomorrow. So you're not right anymore.
You have
continuous learning is something a lot of people have forgotten.
Yeah, you have to go minute to minute and be okay with that, right? And not freak out that it changed. Just go with it.
And this is not philosophical, but actually from physics, in that depending on your current perspective compared to somebody else's current perspective, more than one person can be right at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
Well, you've probably seen that picture, right? That it's a cylinder with a shadow coming from this direction and a shadow coming from that direction.
I shared that recently. What are you talking about?
There you go.
Maybe that's where I saw it.
Hey, have you ever been on a jury? Boy, that's a life lesson for understanding perspectives among the jurors and among the witnesses of a crime. Man, the world gets really confusing.
Really crazy. So I served on a jury when I was 18, and it was a weird jury because, and all juries are weird, but this one was weird because she pleaded guilty to all 4 charges and went into a voir dire, which is where the only thing the jury is doing is considering the evidence as material for considering what the sentence recommendation should be. And so I served on a voir dire jury when I was 18, and man, you know what? In hindsight, now that you've said that, so useful. I had one guy because I wasn't willing to. I mean, she was guilty of killing 2 people and tragically maiming 2 others, and she pled guilty. And you can go back and maybe, I don't know if they list jurors, you could go track this down. When I served on jury duty, she pled guilty. And some dude wanted to let her off with 2 years probation for all charges. And I was like, nope. Nope. Not happening. And one of the people she tragically maimed was her 6-year-old daughter. Okay? So I was like, nope. Nope. You let her off with probation. That kid's back in the house in 2 years. Not happening. So and one guy threatened to kick my ass because he was tired of being there. I was like, cool. And by the way, I'm from East Texas. That's not an uncommon threat.
Nor a swear word.
What's that? Yeah, it was a swear word. It's fine. I didn't take him seriously. I'd still have a beer with him. It's fine. But it was. You're so right. Jury duty is exactly the perspective people need to understand. And if you've never served on a jury, quit trying to get out of it and do it. It's one, your civic duty, and two, a life lesson you will never forget.
I think it's a privilege. When I was about 27, 28, I was on a 4-week murder trial. And man, was that interesting.
Yeah, mine was just manslaughter, for the record. It was manslaughter, not murder.
Yeah, mine was capital murder, and it was in the state of Nevada, where there was the guilt phase, where the jury would decide if the person was guilty on which counts. And then there was the penalty phase, which is like doing the trial all over again, where then we're recommending that the sentence be, death or life without parole or life with parole based on the guilty charge of first degree murder in the first part of it. But the thing that really got me was that we did not have any doubt that he pulled the trigger until the penalty phase, when there was a new witness that we didn't see in the first phase who provided evidence that was conflicted with the evidence that we heard in the first part. And then we thought, wait a minute, maybe she pulled the trigger. And now, darn it, now what do we do?
So I found out after my case, I found out evidence that wasn't allowed in the voir dire, which would have been allowed had she gone to trial. Where, all kinds of negative character stuff. They didn't allow any of the negative character stuff or the stuff that established precedent or anything like that. And I think it would have swayed the jury more towards a harsher punishment than she ultimately received for these 4 heinous crimes. Had we been allowed to see that stuff I agree with you completely. I know exactly where you're coming from. It changes everything. And I didn't find that stuff out until I walked out of the courtroom and somebody said, I'm so glad that you, because I don't know how it got out, but it got out that I was the one that was the hang up.
Yeah. The lesson for me that I've used in InfoSec a lot, number one is it is our job to protect the truth being, business records and the integrity of operations in
CIA
organizations, right? And so, we are there to protect the truth. And the jury trial for me really helped me understand that in certain situations, like in security incident response and in others, it is not always easy to get to the truth. And sometimes, due to limitations of the examiners or the tools or their skills and experience, you can come up with a completely different story of what happened. And yet you're going to take it as the truth, depending on how well they tell that story.
Facts are friendly, opinions are dangerous, and conclusions can kill.
Yeah, so let me just throw in here that I'll just say I had a case that I was working on a while back. And it was on what we call the FCI side, the foreign criminal, foreign counterintelligence side. That's our fancy euphemism for spy.
Yeah.
And a non-domestic spy. And so I'm going through the system and I'm finding what was done and how it was done. And of course, the investigators loved this, and this is what they were needing. And I kept pointing out to them, yeah, that's all good. We can show what was done and how it was done and even who did it. The one thing we cannot show from this is why was it done? And you, as investigators, very non-technical, very traditional, got to get out there and beat the bushes and pound the pavement to try and get to what was the motivators behind this being done, right? So even though you can get into, whatever, the forensics or the facts and the figures, sometimes the very people, drivers behind the situation are never going to be found there. And you're only going to find those with the people skills surrounding the technology, the soft skills, we call them, because it is very important in some instances to understand the motivators behind why somebody did something or why they won't do something that needs to be done. I mean, if you're trying to change behaviors in a security program in an enterprise, and you've got that consistent 3 or 4% that will click on every test phishing email and you can't get them to understand, maybe you don't want to click on everything that pops up on your desk? Well, then I'm suggesting maybe you want to take those people out for their last lunch on the company dime and tell them never come back to the office again. You need a policy with teeth in it, or you need some way to get these people to wake up, or you've got to find out what is their weakness that motivates them that they feel they must click.
Well, and I will say that the counter, while I get where you're coming from completely, is that it's ridiculous for us to always say, don't click on the thing in a lot of other sectors, not in your sector. Your sector is pretty easy. Your former sector, rather, is pretty easy to establish the don't click rules. But there's a whole lot of places where their entire job is to receive emails and click on attachments. That's their whole freaking job. And so we can't come in and say, well, you know you're at fault because you clicked the thing. We can't do that. It doesn't work, which means we have to come up with better, more effective ways of training and get to that exact motivation you were talking about just now. I agree with that piece completely. And in hypersensitive, hypersecure places like you used to work, it's absolutely true that it's time to take them out for their last meal on the company dime and send them on their merry way, preferably with a recommendation for the quality of their work, not the quality of their clicking. But in other places where they are supposed to click on things for their job, it's critical that we bridge that gap and figure out how to reach them, figure out how to better support them. And as security professionals, like I said before, help the business securely deliver. And so if we can't stop them from clicking, we got to find other ways.
Yeah, real training, not, hey, sign this once a year.
Well, now there's a lesson to be learned here, because there's a story about a couple a long time ago. They were told not to eat of the fruit of a tree, and they did anyway. And so we have to know that, whenever we have policy that says don't do something, there are going to be some who are curious and they just got to do it. When I was at Concur, I was the face of infosec there, internally and externally. And the service desk told me about a guy who clicked on something and there was malware and they had to go and clean it up, spill on aisle 9. And so I called the guy on the phone. I said, why do you do that? He says, well, I knew it was a fish. I just wanted to see what the page looked like. It's like, don't do that.
Well, I used to, when I saw a blatant phishing simulation, I used to call my security department when I was in research, so I wasn't technically part of the security department. And I would call them and say, okay, guys, I recognize this for what it is. Take me out of the statistics because I'm about to click.
One of the best ways that I've heard of, that a infosec leader, right, CISO, CIO, I can't even remember what exactly their title was, went about just kind of understanding where people were coming from and then applying it to how they were going to get them to ingest certain security, just, basics, just fundamental type stuff, is instead of assuming that they understood how those people were going to receive the information and wisdom that they wanted to share, they took them out for coffee or invited them to lunch or whatever it was and listened for an hour and a half, at least, to every person, right, that was the head of each department, and heard how security could be used in those departments in a way that would keep those departments flowing in an efficient manner towards the business goals ultimately, but also they understood and gained a whole lot of empathy and perspective from each department head, right, on how to do that. How many leaders do you see that do that? How like I know one, that one, right? Like I don't know how many security professionals out there have close knit relationships with the other department heads, and I mean not just in a, hey, did you get that email I sent you? Right? Not like,
oh yeah,
but like a real relationship with them.
Absolutely. Well, and to the point where you understand their business, right? Like you said, take the time to listen. It is a serious investment. And it's also very difficult for those folks out there who are one-stop shops and it's just you and maybe one other person, I recognize that it is very difficult to put in that time and effort because you are too busy going through fishing logs, right? But you might get rid of some of those logs if you went ahead and carved out the time anyway.
Yeah, you gotta front load your effort, right? The work you put in today is gonna save you so much more time down the road. So much.
In
And,
our business, yeah, relationships matter a lot.
Yes.
More than the technology in many cases. You can get the tech right, but if you don't have the relationships, you're not going to get much done.
you know, and
Well, you won't get buy-in without engagement from the top, right? The top engagement at the top and engagement at the top of the organization, engagement at the top of the department, engagement at the top of the team. And it takes engagement all the way down to that level to reach the individual contributors. And if you don't have engagement from leadership, you are already dead in the water. And that is a piece like, well, when we were talking about that separation of us versus them that so many security people have, that's the piece right here. We've come full circle, and this is what they're missing. Without those relationships and without taking the time to understand our partners, not the business, our partners, and how they derive value for the organization that we work in together, we're already dead in the water. Our program is doomed to fail, and we might as well write 3 envelopes, and that's going to be the theme for the night: 3 envelopes.
but it's not. It's not. You're touching on something that I come up against a lot, right? Is that feeling of just defeat, absolute 100% just defeated security professionals in leadership roles, where they're like, I'm talking to a wall.
Oh, well, I can see earlier you said you couldn't relate to what we were talking about. I can't relate to what you're talking about because I literally cannot relate to that perspective of those people who see it as a defeatist. I've met them. I can't relate to them. I know who you're talking about. I still can't relate to them because they need to just get out there, put themselves out there a little, get out of their nerd shell and into their business outfit, and they're good.
Right. And the point is that you're not necessarily dead in the water, because if you feel like your voice isn't being heard, then go and listen to the other department heads, right? Make little tiny security advocates out of them. And then the 7 or 8 of you, right? Like, approach your C-level as a group that are like, hey, we're all a little concerned about this. Maybe you might, they're going to listen because there's 7 or 8 of you. You can't.
It's hard to overcome a coalition. I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
But you're still. So my point wasn't that you're dead in the water
Okay.
wholesale. My point was that until you get to them, whether it's you as an individual or your coalition that you build, because you just don't take no for an answer because you're a real leader. I don't take no for an answer. Just keep building that coalition until you get what you want, right? But until they actually buy in, you're still not going to get funded to make the program what it needs to be. You're not going to get the buy-in to force some of those holdouts, not standouts, holdouts into the program. So we're speaking the same language.
Yeah, we are. I'm glad you clarified that too, because I was like, wait, no.
No.
No, we're not dead in the water. No, we're not dead in the water. No, we're swimming. We're gonna keep swimming, Dory.
My version of dead in the water is
Dory.
Step up and sing.
Yeah.
Do you?
Exactly. We're gonna keep swimming.
Yeah. Now we're saying the same thing. I just didn't use enough words.
I got you.
In terms of attitude, Andy, I would add this too. I know that in my early years in InfoSec with some of the professionals I worked with, I heard a lot of kind of that, insider talk about the stupid users and so forth. And as a security leader, you've got to stop that. You have to stop saying it to yourself. You have to stop saying it to others. And you have to really do your best to rise above that, because granted, in a big enough organization, there are some people who don't get it and they do the wrong thing. But it's much better to assume the truth, which I believe is that most companies are filled with people, most of whom are trying to do the right thing with the skills and knowledge and tools they have. And sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes they have poor judgment. And those mistakes and poor judgment can take the whole ship down. But it's a better way of regarding the user community. And when you do it that way, you never have to be afraid of what someone might overhear you saying, ever. Because you can't disparage.
Amen.
Yep.
Amen, sir.
I've never gotten hurt by playing nice with somebody else.
There's never any reason to be rude either. Too many of our peers think that they're the smartest person in the room, and that gives them a license to be rude. That's not cool.
Not true.
But I could not agree with you more, Peter. Like wholesale, yes.
Yeah, when the end user fails, that's a failure on us, not them.
Yep.
Those jokes were funny at a help desk in 1999.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they were. I mean, I was there, and they were funny. But those days are over. Everybody's a user.
You mean
Internet's
like
a real thing.
the cup holder jokes and things like that? Actually, that's more like 80s, right?
Well, that's early night. So I had the cup holder guy. Like for real. I worked at a retail store in 1999 to 2001, if I'm remembering my resume in the right order. And during that time, I had somebody come in, a good old boy redneck from the backwoods. Remember, I'm from East Texas, the middle of nowhere. And he came in and he told me his beer holder was broken. And I'm like, what do you mean your beer holder?
Beer holder.
I might even be the genesis for this story. I don't know, because I've told this story 1,000 times. I doubt I'm the genesis. There's no way I'm the only person this happened to. But so you guys know that the old CD-ROMs, because we don't all have them anymore, but the old CD-ROMs, they had a large tray and a little tray in the middle. And that little tray was for a micro CD or a small CD, right?
Yeah.
And those were a thing too for a long time. And he had discovered that a red Solo cup fit that hole perfectly.
Of course it does.
And it was his beer holder. And so I went through and I said, so beer holder, tell me the thing you're talking, show me. I have a computer on the demo floor right here. Show me the thing you're talking about. And he went to the CD-ROM and he's like, the beer holder. And he pushed the button. He's like, see, Solo cup goes here. I'm like, I gotcha. Another customer had brought in and God, I hope this guy never finds me. I hope he's like, not on the internet. Another customer had brought in a computer because their CD-ROM died, but its power was fine. And so I said, you don't use this for literally anything else. He's like, why would I use a beer holder for something other than holding beer? I'm like, my man. And so I sold him a new beer holder for $50.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. And I took it back and I put somebody else's bad CD-ROM in, did not connect the data cable, gave him back. Happiest customer I've ever had, man. And real story from 1999 that you can't.
And the lesson we learned is that Andy took the time to listen. Andy was
Yep.
listening. That's the key here, guys.
And it worked out.
Andy
Yeah.
was listening.
And that computers are multi-purpose. Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think he was playing Civilization. That was literally the only thing he used his computer for. Some dude who was out there, mowing hay for a living or whatever it was he was doing. I'm just remembering what he was dressed like and where I'm from. He was probably mowing hay for a living, and which you can make a lot of money at, by the way.
Yeah,
And yeah, you can. And so he was mowing hay all day, and he came home and he wanted to conquer the world every night. Have at it, brother, or drink a beer. I still don't know how he installed Civ without using the CD-ROM though.
Yeah, you didn't download it in those days, did you? Unless it
Did
came.
not download it. So I'm still curious about that part, but I was not going to ask.
Yeah, because Civilization was a pretty hardcore program back in the day. That was not going to be on floppy disks.
Right, no. I remember my first copy. Somewhere I still have the disc because I'm a nerd. And Civ 1 was on a CD-ROM. It was back when CD-ROMs were these big, bulky add-ons and you had to have a separate card and all this stuff because the interface wasn't standard on the motherboards. A 1X CD-ROM. We bought a 1X CD-ROM and it didn't have power opening or anything. Yeah, so I'm a nerd.
Barely faster than a CD, yeah, or than a floppy. Back in the late 90s, if you got Office, it came on one CD or it was like 50.
You had a book, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, no, I don't remember one. I remember
It
10.
take like 2 days to install.
Yeah.
You're like 10 or 11, right? Like, and when
Yes.
you used one, you were.
I'm pretty sure my parents still have a copy of that. And an original, my dad has an original in the packaging, still shrink wrapped DOS 6.1.
That's probably worth money now.
Can I?
It probably
that?
is.
Wow. So I have to confess that back in those days when looking at a stack of whatever, 10 or 12 floppies to install something, factory shrink wrapped. I don't remember which disk in the sequence it was. Malware on it.
It did have.
Factory shrink wrap. I pulled the shrink wrap. I fed the floppy.
That's what
to
you
do
call a
the
supply chain attack.
Yeah.
Apparently. And so this was adding some program to the system that had already been up and running. So it already had antivirus and, trying to be responsible that way. And I don't remember disk 6 or disk 7 in the middle of the stack somewhere came up with virus.
Was this work related or personal?
Well,
Because I mean,
it was
FBI,
in work.
that'd be like
It was in the workplace environment. It was within the first, I think, 3 months that I had gone into work for the FBI back in, let me see, that would have been 92, fall of 92. And I was installing something for an internal, government system. That's why it was factory shrink wrapped that I was feeding. And I'm going, no, this is not supposed to happen. So I just stopped and documented everything. And I just said, look, I have no answer for this. All I can tell you is it's what I found. And sure enough, we went back and looked. And I think I was the first one in that box of those to be installed. And so I just happened to be lucky me. I'm the guy who found it, right? We found out that the same disk in the set, in the rest of the box, all the other sets in the box, also had the same malware on it. So there was something all the way back on the factory production system that on that numbered disk in this set for that batch run, malware.
There it was.
Makes me wonder if they knew that batch run was headed for your office.
Yeah, you could be. Supply chain attack.
Yep, totally.
What year is this? Yeah, this is
This would have been 92 and about the month of August or September, because I went in June 92 and it was about month 3 or 4.
So just a few years shy of DevSec.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I mean,
what's old is new.
Yep. There you go.
So
cybersecurity is just fashion.
Wait. Skinny ties or wide ties?
How about no tie?
Skinny
Great,
malware
pointed at the bottom.
So, does everyone recall when I was like the worst sound is no sound at Rachel Arnold's house?
Oh, I remember you were saying that earlier.
Yeah. So there hasn't been any sound for a while. I might walk out there and find my husband duct taped to a chair and my children like Lord of the Flies style sacrificing things.
Well, I was just going to ask, are you the only responsible adult in the house at the moment?
No, no, I would have been like, sorry guys.
You're a responsible adult.
There's going to be a lot of kids involved. No, but it does mean that I need to go check on that, and I got to go. And it's been great. I love hanging out with you guys so much, and thank you so much, Jacob, for asking me to come be here with you all. And you guys keep
absolutely.
Man.
Before you go, Rachel, you want to do a quick plug on Secure Nation? We see your sign back there.
Oh yeah. My bad. Look, it was a working day. Like I just stuff happens. Yeah, so Secure Nation, man. We're a VAR. There you go.
Hey, we're a VAR too, and if you want to team up, let's do it. There's money for both of us.
So we're small business model kind of thinking. We are completely vendor agnostic, don't offer any services to go with any of it. So if you've got a services thing, we love hanging out with you. Perfect.
Hey, we do have a services thing, and we should talk afterwards. But yeah, absolutely. So plug away.
Yeah, we'll do that. If you guys are not aware, for anyone who's a fan of Chris Roberts, Evan, and Ryan, they have a security shit show that's going to be on this evening, 10 my local time, which is Central. So that's whatever time you guys do math. There was some blue vodka involved. So yeah, and cool. Thank you. This was
Yeah. Thanks
great.
so much for being on here, Rachel. It's great to chat with you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if anybody ever needs anything, hit me up on LinkedIn. It's like my second office. I live there. So
Mine too.
Sounds good. Well, good luck in the Thunderdome.
oh, that was a scary sound. Okay, bye.
All right, bye.
See you, Rachel.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to take that as my cue as well, guys. I can hear the princess movie keeping my daughters, that my wife is using to keep my daughters busy, is about to end. And I don't know which movie it was, and I'm about to get quizzed because that's how this works. I've got young kids, and so my evening is probably filled with magic wands and tutus from here. So I'll miss you guys.
No, this is perfect. For some reason, I thought we were only right at the hour, but it looks like we're at an hour and a half. So that's perfect. It's probably right on average on what I figured this would be a good chat for. So yeah. So thanks, Andy. You want to plug your company real
Sure.
quick, where you're at?
Sure, I'll plug. I've just joined Apollo Information Systems. We are also a VAR. We do have a professional services organization. We do a lot of consultation. We also play nice with others. So if you're using Rachel and she has something that you need, or she doesn't have something that you need, have her reach out to us, and vice versa. If she does something that we need, we don't hesitate to reach out to them. So we play nice with others. We help solve problems. I'm not in sales, which is why this is not the best plug ever. My job is to work with our customers to make sure that we identify the best solutions. And much to my sales organization's chagrin, even 10 days in, sometimes that means it's not us. But long-term relationships pay dividends more than short-term sales. And that's our business model. So if we have to turn down business today to earn your business tomorrow, we will. And that's why I said yes when they asked me to join them.
That's
Awesome. Yeah, that's great to know, and I wish you the best of luck at this new job. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this. It's just you get build so much better rapport and relationships. Talking one-on-one with people rather than just LinkedIn messaging. So
Totally.
and during our time right now, I won't say the new or the new norm, but yeah, I think this is great, and I was really glad to have you on, and look forward to inviting you back once in a while in the future on whenever you can make it.
Hey man, if you'll have me, I'd love to come back.
Sounds good. All right, well, thanks, Andy.
Have a good one, guys.
You too.
Great to meet you, Peter, and good to see you, Samuel.
Sure. Catch you later.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
All right, well, I think this was a pretty good episode again. Don't know about you guys, but I think we're pretty good to wrap things up.
Sure.
I think we made it right at the 90-minute mark. That's perfect. Didn't go too far over. Wasn't too short. So I think this was pretty successful. So Samuel, thanks for inviting Andy on. That was great.
Yeah,
Indeed.
like I said, he'd have an interesting story or three to share. And he and I have worked on a few projects in the past, even outside of my official FBI capacities. And so always a good colleague to have in the know, I've found him to be.
Yeah, that's good.
Samuel, did you ever meet another SA named Norm Sanders in Seattle? Did you ever know Norm?
So in Seattle, there is one or two folks that I am aware of, because I got to be careful how I do this right here in this medium. Let's just say there were some folks that were introduced to our federal retention systems for the first time in the history of that country in this one. And that was run, or a portion of that was run out of Seattle back in that day. I don't mind talking with you offline, but certain details I don't do on social media for OPSEC reasons.
Of course.
And so yeah, there's one or two guys up there I'm aware of. I can tell you that the name sounds familiar, but I am not recalling a face.
Yeah, he's a cybercrime guy. He was in a lot of international takedown ops in countries, in interesting places. Yeah.
Yeah. So we, meaning my former employer, it doesn't make the news, as it shouldn't, when there are sometimes things that need to be done in sometimes places people don't understand why we need to go there like right now, and we haven't got time to explain to them what we've been looking at for 3 years to make a 5-minute decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you'll appreciate the glass. I mean, oops. Oh, nice. There's a FBI seal on there. Bought that in Quantico 5-6 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate what you do. I've been in Infragard. I'm still in Infragard, and I was in the FBI Citizens Academy 12 years ago now. Man, that dates me. That was marvelous. And a few years ago, the Seattle and Chicago chapters got together. We put a group together and did several days in Washington, D.C. So we got into the back offices of headquarters downtown.
Mm-hmm.
Crime lab, spent a day in the crime lab, met some interesting people. Spent a day in Quantico, met some really interesting people. And where else did we go? We were going to get into the U.S. Capitol, but that day the Pope was in town, and security was so tight that all the back office Capitol stuff was off. No tours, nothing like that. They had that place so locked down. I mean, there were tanks out on the streets parked, and to direct traffic and block traffic. It was pretty interesting. So we didn't get
there are some interesting I'll just say out of the way places that if you can happen to connect with somebody in some of the building office spaces of the FBI downtown DC, you can get eyes on some rather interesting things that aren't commonly accessible by just the average public. It's one of those, you gotta know a guy who knows a guy about things like that.
Yeah, we saw some of that at the FBI crime lab. We saw some really interesting things there. I mean, there's a whole room dedicated to the Unabomber and the techniques he used, and had some of the parts of his bombs and also models of what his bombs, they believe what they looked like before they were detonated.
It's all good stuff. There's all kinds of really interesting things, and I'm gonna tell you a story that's, I'll say it's slightly macabre. I am not going to go visually gross here, but it is slightly macabre. But I was working I'll just say a data crunching project down in Quantico at the ERF, which stands for Engineering Research Facility. Long story short, that is our version of the lab on James Bond where Q works. Right?
I didn't see that.
So we have one of those labs tucked down inside Quantico Marine Base. I'll just say somewhere.
Sure.
Right.
Nice.
So I'm working this data crunching project, and I'm not going to say exactly when. And I come across, related to the case I was working on, some photos related to guys who were known to be building pipe bombs. And in the photos, there were certain, I'll just say, digits missing off fingers and halves of ears blown away and a nose that's bent to the side. And these were photos.
Yeah.
And I stopped and I gawked at them for the longest time before one of my coworkers said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, for the first time in my life, I realized that I'm looking at photos of a situation that is not a Hollywood makeup stunt situation. These are photos of real." And I'm just sort of assimilating that here for 30 seconds, because up until now it's been, it's Hollywood. And now I'm looking for the first time in my professional life, my personal life, of this isn't Hollywood. This is real. This is affecting people really. And that just that just was kind of heavy on me for the whole rest of the afternoon. And it was very motivating for getting into and extracting and pulling the data apart and shredding it and figuring out, all right, how am I going to produce an algorithm that's going to dive through all the hay in this stack to extract the 2 or 3 needles we know are in there? How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, appreciate your service there, Samuel. You know, a lot of good people go into the bureau. And,
Yep.
Despite all the political shit that they're being dragged through these days, you know, true or untrue, I don't care. But there's a lot of good agents out there doing good work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now to clarify for anybody else who's listening, I was not an agent, haven't been. I didn't pack a gun and a badge. I was a geek the whole time, all the way through. And geek is spelled computer scientist.
So you were support then? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm on what they were called the support side of the fence, and the ratio is about 3 to 1. For every agent, there's about 3 support people, and those support people are everything from janitors to auto mechanics to accountants to biologists to computer scientists to analysts of some sort, a chemist maybe, who knows. But the ratio is approximately 3 to 1. So if they have 7,000 agents on board, they've got another 21,000 support people on board, roughly speaking.
You need that to work your cases, right? Because I mean, you can't be everywhere at once, and you don't need a badge to do everything that needs to be done in cases.
Yeah, right.
They can't do it without the support.
Yeah, I knew one of the support people in Seattle pretty well. She was in forensics.
Yes.
And is one of the career people, probably been there over 20 years now.
Right. And see, so now one of the things they like to do in the cyber realm with so much of the digital forensic stuff that's going on is they will team up with an actual badge and gun investigator. They will usually team up at least one type of analyst, sometimes 2, because sometimes the analysis might be informational, or it might be language or geography related, right? So sometimes it's 2 analysts or 3 analysts along with a computer scientist. So I'm dealing with what is it, where is it, and how do I get it pulled out and converted into something that somebody else can actually do something with, right? Or if a theory develops because of what's being investigated and what is beginning to come through, then it comes back the other way in terms of, okay, how do we prove or test this hypothesis? Can you find something else out there that would support this or dismiss it so we can eliminate it? Right. So I have another reason to go digging around through the data to try and figure out either yes, this is a viable hypothesis, or no, there's nothing supporting it.
It's a scientific method.
Yeah.
It is.
As long as you take the politics out of it.
Yes, and of course, with what's been recently dragged through the media over the last 18, 24 months.
Yeah.
Not what I signed up for.
Yeah, I bet.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to call it. We're almost at 1:45. I think this was a good one, another successful one. So thank you, Peter and Samuel, for coming out and chatting tonight.
Yeah, indeed. Jacob, thanks for setting this up, and great to see you, Samuel, again.
Yeah, for sure.